Hello everyone and welcome back to Timberborn. This is episode 5 of the Spillage series. In the last episode we found out that a bad tide is approaching, so we have only 0.7 days left. Fortunately we have our badwater diversion system that is set up. At least we have a temporary setup. We have a section that the badwater can flow through. It's going to go through the first channel and then fill up this area and then go through the second channel as well. At which point it will join up with the existing badwater river and then get diverted through our water wheels and then to the edge of the map. In the long run, I want to be able to capture the badwater power and also capture the power that we generate from this badwater seep. Right now it's flowing over here and then down into this section, which is making this water seep completely unusable. But if we divert the badwater from this seep by blocking off this section and then blasting away part of this mountain, we can then have it tie into this whole system. And this system is going to be using overhangs and platforms, and it will be an aqueduct that goes over top this water seep. That way there should be no contamination effects that impact any of this area. But this is going to be a massive undertaking, so we are working on getting all the resources that we need. And in order to get all of those resources, we need to expand our production zone. So we added a few more buildings during the last episode. We have a lot of lumber mills. We have paused a few of them for now. And then we're also adding in some water wheels. Soon I'm going to unlock the large wind turbine, and then we can place those along the sides of the water wheels, and that'll give us some additional power. The beavers are packing up for the night. We'll see in the morning how this bad tide hits. But overall on resources we're doing pretty good. Water and food are looking great. Bad water we are maxed out on. And then pretty much all of the other resources that we produce and collect are looking good. And I'm seeing some bad water spill out the side here. Did I miss a spot? Ooh, so we did not actually construct all these. So we'll need to add those sometime after this bad tide hits. But so far it looks like the system is working well. We have blocked the bad water from going into our district. Although one thing I do need to add is a bad water pump right here. Because if we were to leave this, then this would be a contaminated section. The sluices would remain closed since the contamination is above 2%. And we would have to wait for the water and bad water to evaporate enough that this gets below 12%. And the water seep will only turn on outside of being a bad tide when the water level is below 0.8 tiles tall. So to get around that, there's a couple things that you can do. I saw one of you guys suggested putting in a fluid dump down here. While that would be able to prevent any bad water from flowing out during a bad tide, it would also require me to turn it on and off manually. And I don't want to end up forgetting and then have our main water source not be turned on partway through a wet season. But if we have a bad water pump, then we're not going to have to worry about the bad water getting outside of here, and we can pump the bad water out of the system, which means that the water seep should turn on, the contamination level should drop down below 2% within a couple of days. We also have the irrigation barriers around here, and that is protecting us from the bad water effects. So now it's just a waiting game for the bad water to fully drain out of here, but that's okay because we're not really using much of this section at the moment. And you can see the water physics are going berserk. The contamination level has dropped below 2%, and now the water seep is turned on, the sluices are open, and it's filling back up. We have over 2,000 science, which means we can unlock the underground pile, and we can get a few of those placed around here. We can place 3, we could even do 4 of those right in this section. We'll need to connect all them in with paths, and then this can be our main resource storage area. We'll probably have some others that are set to supply, and then have them bring all the resources over here. Alternatively, if we have more production that is beyond where this section is, we can also have some of these buildings set to supply. But so far, we're not in that position, so we can leave them as is. We did also level out this section in the last episode, so now I can add in a few more campfires. Although maybe we don't even want to do that many. We could probably just get away with 2 more. And then we could also look at getting an agora placed down. It will require us to use extract, and it's also quite a massive building. I think what we're going to do, we're going to have this section set to campfires. We can have an agora placed nearby down the road. If we get some overhangs on top of these potatoes and then place some dirt blocks on that, we can have a path going along here and that'll lead to the agora. So we can keep it simple by adding in just 4 campfires. And then since we also have a good amount of science, we can also unlock some more decorations. The roof is going to be an easy one. And then all of these, they're not too expensive. Some of them are a little bit more expensive than others, but they can give some good well-being boosts. And as we are reaching the end of where we want to have some houses go in this direction, we actually have a perfect area that we can add a path in. And then I think it's also worth getting another zipline station or 2 set up over here. We can make it another mini transfer station. So we can place down at least 1 zipline station. But if I want to get the second one placed down, I think I need to have the overhangs going on top of this underground pile first, and then I can place some platforms going on top of that. So I'm going to hold off on the second one for now. We can add this connection in, and it still should function as intended for now. And then we have an easy area that we can add in a few more houses. We're doing good on beavers and jobs for now, so I'm only just going to add the one. And then we can get a triple lodge placed on top. We can also sneak some decorations behind here, so that should help give the beavers a well-being boost as well. And it seems we're actually pretty much maxed out on water. We already have 3 of these water pumps paused, so we can pause another 2. Let's go with that. We'll see what pausing 2 of these guys does. And we're doing pretty good on jobs. We actually have an unemployed beaver now, and it seems their well-being is also going up a bit. We can unpause some of these inventors huts just to try and get some additional science, because we did burn through quite a bit unlocking those decorations. And now that we have all the storages set up, we can start removing some of these smaller ones. We have this one that we're getting rid of all the metal blocks, and then we have several piles that are filled with wood. So in order for us to get the bad water diversion system set up, let's see what we're going to need. Overhangs are going to be the primary object that we'll be using, and those take a massive amount of science, 3,000. Alternatively, we could also use these metal platforms, and that would shift the resources we need from wood and planks exclusively over to metal blocks. We're doing fine on metal blocks. We have a good amount of scrap metal, but we've almost run out of scrap metal, so we need to think big picture where we want to collect some in the long run. We have a mine right over here, and in order for us to unlock the mine, we need to have treated planks and gears, and then we'll need to have a good amount of treated planks in order to extract the scrap metal. We do have a couple of wood workshops that are built. We're only using one at the moment. We also have a mine that's closer. It's right here. We're not too far away from it, but it does get inundated during a bad tide, so we can't depend on this one right now. So we're going to make a jaunt over here, and then we can get this mine up and running. We don't have quite enough science at the moment. We're about 3,000 short, but with science also being a main thing we need to focus on, I think it's actually going to be worth getting the observatory instead, since that is only 1,000 science, and then we can get 10 science every 0.75 hours. We can pivot to another set of ruins, and this hopefully should be our last set of ruins that we need to collect scrap metal from before we get a mine that we can use. We can get a zipline pylon and a station set up over here. We just need to make sure we actually have some scrap metal collectors. And then we can also go over here and start removing some of these guys, because there's only one piece of scrap metal left. And while for now we're doing good on wood, I don't think that just these 2 forests are going to be enough to supply our wood needs. So we're going to have to look at expanding where we can plant some trees. We can collect some dead trees that are around the colony, but we're going to have to rely on some water sources as well. This would be a great one. Unfortunately, it is inundated with bad water, and it will be in the future because we don't have that diversion system set up. We do have access to some trees in this section, and I don't think it would be too hard to place down a few levees and block this off that prevent the bad water from going into here, because there is a water seep, but it's basically turned off because the bad water seep is overtaking it. And although we're not actually collecting metal from this mine at the moment, we can get some of the infrastructure set up to get over there. So we can get our first zipline station set up, and then we just need to get down here. We're going to temporarily create a few platforms going across, and then I'm going to flatten some of this area out, which will make it easier to get some piles set up, and then we can store some scrap metal, and then also some of the other resources that we need in order to create the scrap metal. You guys have given me some recommendations on blocking these bad tide drains, and I think at least temporarily that's going to be a good idea. If we add in a couple of platforms and then get some levees on top of those, and then also not forget to construct these over here, this will prevent us from getting any more bad water over here. We need to do the same in the second bad tide drain, and then that will allow us to take advantage of the water seep right here, and then we can start growing some more trees. We can also speed up this process by getting a bad water pump. We'll have it prioritized by haulers for now, and we actually have some unemployed beavers. And we're not going to worry about that quite yet because we're going to be adding in some more production buildings, so they will be able to fill in the gaps as we create those. We're also going to do just a little bit of rearranging. We can fit some storages underneath this section. And we have another bad tide approaching in just under 3 days. They finished constructing the first part. They're getting these last couple of levees placed underneath, and then they're finishing the last 2 up here. So that should keep us safe from a bad tide. We'll see how it goes during this next one. And this guy is also pumping out as much of the bad water as he can. That also opens up this second mine for us to utilize, so we don't necessarily need to have all this infrastructure set up. Can lower the priority for all of these, although at some point we will probably want to have 2 mines up and running. For now we can probably pivot to have this one, since we don't need to set up quite as much infrastructure for it. So we have the lumber mills that have been replaced. We added in a couple more gear workshops, And then we also have a bunch of extra storage underneath. These will be useful for storing some additional items. We have 4 large warehouses right here, and then we also have a few more in this section, but down the road additional storage will be very handy. And we're starting to have some green return to this area. The badwater pumper is doing his best, but if we want to have as much of this area green as we can, then we can start getting some dynamite and have some paths for the water to travel to, and then make sure we have a few 3x3 areas. In the meantime, we can also get a forester set up, and then we can start getting some oak trees planted. Although I'm realizing we can actually pause this guy, because this water seep is going to turn into a bad water seep during the bad tide, so there's not really a point in getting it cleaned up. We will need to remove the bramble so we can set up a similar sluice situation to our main area, because this guy is working pretty darn well, so we'll need to translate that over here. But unfortunately we're going to need to wait on that for now, because in order to remove the bramble we're going to have to get into this bad water pool. So realistically we'll probably have to wait until after the bad tide is finished and we've been able to pump all the bad water out of here, but that's going to take a little bit. I'm going to hold off on detonating any of this until the bad tide is over, and then when we have water coming out of the water seep once again we can detonate this, turn the bad water pump back on, and then hopefully we'll be in a good spot. It might make sense to switch these to birch trees for now, because those grow up in 7 days. It's a much quicker turnaround, versus if we have oak trees and then we don't have this thing figured out, we could potentially have a lot of time wasted. We also have 3,000 science, which means we can unlock the observatory, and then we'll need to shift this large pile. And it seems like we have enough power between the geothermal engine and then these water wheels. The supply and demand is hovering right around the same number, which means we're about 97% efficiency. And somehow there's still some green space over here. So this guy's planting all the birch trees that he can. We only have 0.4 days left of the bad tide, so pretty soon we'll be able to expand our tree planting area. And I did notice that the beaver had to walk all the way over here to get to this zipline station. Realistically, I'm going to want to have one that goes more directly over there, so we can start by adding in another zipline station. This one can be connected here, and then we'll have this one go to a new one that we can set up in this section. But the bad tide is over, it is beginning cycle 8, and we can unpause this bad water pump and then detonate all this dynamite. Ooh, but that is going to disconnect this area. Oh my gosh, oh no, he almost died. That would have been no good. We can add in a platform and a path to connect everything in, and then detonate this dynamite as well. We might as well add in a station for all the beavers who work over here, and then we can get one more zipline station placed here. And now we have our observatory up and running. This will get us a massive amount of science, which is going to be absolutely fantastic. And since we're also a little bit short on beavers, now we can pause some of these inventors huts, and then we can also look at expanding our water wheels, as well as we can unlock the large wind turbine for 1,500 science. And then I'm seeing a lot of opportunities for using the double dynamite, but since we don't have extract yet, that means that we should probably look at unlocking that. So that's an additional 600 science, but that is not a problem for us. The main thing that I'm concerned about is the high chance of injury, which for me signals that we should also consider looking at getting bots unlocked. We have just about enough science to unlock all 3 of these. We can start by getting the bot part factory unlocked, and then also the refinery. And just like that, we have a bunch of infrastructure that the beavers are going to work on. Thankfully we're doing pretty good on metal blocks and gears and planks. And then we also need to get a refinery placed down. That does not require us to have power, but we are going to have a lot of potatoes, and we might not actually have quite enough because we're actually running a little bit short on grilled potatoes now. But we do have another trick up our sleeve. In the food section we can unlock the beehive. We don't have quite enough science at the moment, but in the next episode we can unlock that and then start placing those beehives around our existing farm. Ooh, we also created an island, so this guy can't actually reach any of these trees. As soon as we get these platforms constructed, he should be able to plant some more. We can also add some more birch trees on this side. So we have a lot that's going on over here. I think right here would be a great spot to get that refinery constructed, and then we can make sure that the recipe is set to potatoes because that is the most efficient out of all of them. We also had a couple more windmills that were constructed, and then they did finish this water wheel, but it is not providing any power at the moment. So if we place down a couple pieces of dynamite and then also get some power shafts set up, that'll add to our power network. And then we can slowly start adding in some of the large wind turbines. Unfortunately, we're running a little bit short on planks now, so we can lower these on the priority list because they're not super essential at the moment. So having the addition of bots is going to be essential. They're going to be hopping in a lot of the dangerous jobs. The refinery is definitely one that I want to toss them in as soon as I can. And then the explosives factory is another great job to put them in. The wood workshop is only a medium chance of injury, but they produce treated planks, and even though we have 2 of them, having bots in here to run 24/7 is going to be fantastic. Although I see we're currently maxed out on treated planks, we can't actually hold that many, so we'll need to add in an underground pile somewhere. but that is something we can figure out in the next episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. We have been making a lot of progress. We drastically expanded our production network over here, so things are in a good spot for the next episode. And while we didn't get to focus on our aqueduct in today's video, we are getting ourselves set up so that we can do that down the road. We will also need to make sure that we continue to prioritize trees, because those are basically the backbone of the entirety of all the production. Our pine resin stores are looking good, our scrap metal is in a fantastic spot, so we are setting ourselves up for success. If you enjoyed today's video, please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot to me, and it helps the channel out tremendously. And with that, we will see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.